Okay, welcome everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to you all in this session on Circular Plastic Conference 2021. This conference is part of the Circular Plastic Initiative, which is the research collaboration on circular plastics between DPI, Dutch Polymer Institute, and the ISPT. In this initiative, we boost circularity of plastics on an industrial scale, and we address the whole value chain. And we go together with our industrial and research partner, because of course we can't do this alone. My name is Klaartje Rietkerke and I'm the program officer of manager for the Circular Plastic Initiative. Today we have two parts, and the first part will be a session with speakers and a panel discussion. And in this session, in part one, we can answer your questions. And you can do that by, Eva, can you show me the next slide? Yeah, ask your questions in the Q&A. Now it's possible that not all questions will be answered. So you can also ask your questions in the Quest Network app. And the questions that won't be answered during this meeting, we will answer at a later stage in the network app. So please fill in your questions and we will come back to them if not live in this session. Then please slide 3. After this session, we will have the second part where you can meet the speakers, also the speakers from the other session, interact with each other and go to a virtual room where you can discuss the topics of today or any topics on your mind. So for now, I would like to introduce Anne-Gaëlle Collot, Senior Manager Consumer Environmental Affairs at PlasticsEurope, who has set up this session and who will be the moderating.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Klaartje, for the introduction. So it's a pleasure to welcome you to this session. We have 4 eminent speakers like today who are going to discuss project stewardship for industry. So I'm going to introduce the speakers. I'm starting with the first speaker. The first speaker is going to be Laure Paillargeon from DG GROW. Laure is a policy officer. She has in DG GROW. She has worked in DG GROW since 2007, and she joined the plastics team in 2018. She's going to present on the Circular Plastic Alliance. And then after that, we will have 2 speakers for the same session. Irene Mora, my colleague from PlasticsEurope Spain. Irene is an environmental and sustainability manager for PlasticsEurope Spain. She's been working for PlasticsEurope since 2013, and she holds a PhD in chemistry. She will present together with Kamal Azarg. Kamal is based in Norway. He's working for Sintef. He's senior research manager for Sintef. He holds also a PhD in chemistry, and he's got broad experience on the EU projects. And last but not least, we have Rob Budges from LyondellBasell Basel. By profession, Rob is a chemical engineer, and he's worked for the last 9 years for LyondellBasell Basel. And he's also the chair, or he's been the chair of the PlasticsEurope Task Force on Operation Clean Sweep. And Rob will talk about Operation Clean Sweep and all the work we're doing with the value chain to implement Operation Clean Sweep. So thank you all. So now I'm just going to give you a quick introduction on who we are, PlasticsEurope. So please, the next slide. So we are an association that represents the European plastics industry, and our main mission is to deliver solutions which are safe, circular, and sustainable for plastics. Science and innovation is absolutely central for an industry, allowing us to provide solutions in an ever-changing world. Our commitment as an industry is to focus on ensuring plastics continue to deliver societal benefits without having a negative impact on our environment and health. So these obviously include supporting the European Union Green Deal's ambition, and we are really determined to implement long-lasting positive changes. Our main mission and you can see that on this slide, is to accelerate a solution-driven approach towards working towards circularity and the climate goals. We are vital for the European economy and for its recovery plan. Can I have the next slide, please? So PlasticsEurope is headquartered in Brussels, and we have offices in 7 countries. In fact, one of my colleague from Spain, is also going to intervene today. Next slide, please. We actually strongly believe that product stewardship, collaboration, and partnership with the value chain is essential to deliver circularity on the climate goals. And we've established a number of partnerships in the EU as well as globally. And you'll have some examples of those in which we are involved, like today during this session. So that's it for the introduction for PlasticsEurope. Now we're going to have the presentation from Laure Baillargeon from DG Grow, and Laure is going to talk about the Circular Plastic Alliance. Thank you. Please, Laure.
Yes, hello, Anne-Gaëlle. Can you hear me well?
Very well. Welcome,
okay.
Laure.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Eva. So the title of the presentation is Circular Plastics Alliance, and the subtitle, like a question, is do we think it's a good example, it's a good model? Can we discuss that for product stewardship for plastics? So thank you, Anne-Gaëlle, for the title also, because product stewardship is an interesting concept. And if I understood well, it means that you have really everybody associated with the production, the distribution, the use, and of course the end-of-life management of a product that has to be involved in making the product more sustainable. So I thought it was really an interesting topic, an interesting title you gave to us, Anne-Gaëlle, because it's true. Otherwise, often we speak of extended producer responsibility, which is perhaps a bit limiting the perspective. And here it was really interesting to discuss it more to give it a broader meaning, really how everybody in a value chain for a product can cooperate together. If we go to the next slide, Eva, of course, what was also interesting is that, okay, at DG Grow, I'm dealing with, I'm acting as secretariat of the Circular Plastics Alliance. So it means that we are supporting the work of the Circular Plastics Alliance. So of course, being invited to the Circular Plastics Conference was making a lot of sense. So thank you also for that. What was quite interesting, and I think we discussed a bit ahead of today's meeting, is that here we are not really discussing really per se a product. We are rather discussing a material, which is relatively new, I would say, in policy making at EU level, especially when it comes to plastics. So this is what the slide is showing, that back in 2017, we could see really a societal concern around not a product, not a specific kind of pollution, but really plastics as a material. And in 2018, the Commission adopted the first ever policy strategy really dedicated to plastics. So per se, this is relatively interesting, because how do we understand maybe product stewardship, which is usually applied to a product like packaging, to a material? So that was quite interesting. So if we go to the next slide, Eva, maybe. Yes, so what I did also to position the Circular Plastics Alliance in a broader context, reflecting around how do we think of a stewardship for plastics. It's true that it's a very also a relevant topic in the current also policy context. So if you look at the policy of the European Commission on sustainability, you can see that there is really an emerging practice, not to just look at a product, but to look also a bit more broadly also at the supply chain, so the first example is of course a very recent example, quite unique, the batteries regulation. So the regulation on batteries, where I think it's the first time, I think there is no precedent. We discuss not only the sustainability of the product as such, looking at product requirements, but also how the product has been made, how it has been produced, which is quite unique. And in the way also sustainability of economic activities has been discussed lately, personally, I could anticipate a trend where more and more, even as a company, you have also to be responsible for the sustainability, not only of your own activities, but also maybe being able to certify what is happening upstream in the supply chain. So that is a quite interesting evolution. And what I looked also are a few examples that are really on materials and that are quite interesting. So you can see them on the slide. And of course, a quite relevant one is Vinyl Plus on PVC, so a plastic material also. So there would be also a lot to say about these initiatives, but we can move to the next slide, Eva. I could see you were willing. Yes, so if we come now to the Circular Plastics Alliance as such, how could it be an interesting model or an interesting example for stewardship on plastics? So probably one element of the Circular Plastics Alliance is really the broad coverage of the value chain. So that's what you can see on the slide. And you can see that it is the whole product life cycle, which is being covered. And you have also different angles. So if you look in particular at the brands, you will see the different sectors. And we have also in the Circular Plastics Alliance organizations which are representing the value chain for a plastic material across the whole life cycle. So we really cover the life cycle from many different angles, actually. So that is something important to have everybody around the table. If we go to the next slide, maybe Eva. Yes, and so indeed that was really our philosophy, I would say, when starting with the Circular Plastics Alliance. So really our objective was to have everybody that matters around the table. So really everybody in the value chain should be there, from recycler to converters, etc. But also it was about ownership by the value chain. So the philosophy was not about us without us. So it's the underlying thinking behind a participatory processes. So that's really the approach we took, to make it really participatory, to involve everybody that has a stake, and really put the responsibility of defining together the action that we want to do together, to define it ourselves. So to really put people, to empower the value chain. So that was really our approach. Of course, I will come back also to what was predefined, but within a predefined framework, in particular a predefined target, it was really about ownership. Eva, I think we can move to the next slide. Yes, so that was also to show something, another dimension that could be potentially interesting in the Circular Plastics Alliance is the governance also that we are that has been put in place really as a part of the initiative. I mean, it's really important to to have an effective governance in this kind of system. So you can see that the ownership is very much on the sectors, so that the decision was made to create working groups that are the primary level to make the decisions and to drive the operational work. That was done at sectorial level. So there was not, for example, a working group on recycling and another working group on R&D. It was really meant to be at sectorial level in order to see ownership. And so this is what you see. There is, of course, a horizontal cross-cutting working group on monitoring, because monitoring is for everybody in the CPA. And they were created as well cross-cutting teams to create synergies between the different sectors. And this is something that is quite interesting, I think, in this materials approach at the CPA, and something that is really recognized by the signatories as bringing added value. This is precisely these links between the sectors, these cross-sectorial linkages. And you can see also on the right of the slide the steering committee. So the steering committee is actually, contrary to what its title could suggest, it is actually not steering the work itself. It is only a monitoring and advising body. So the power, if you want, in the alliance is really with the sectors, with the working groups at operational level. I think we can move to the next slide, Eva. Yes, so something that is also maybe quite important, because as you have seen, the CPA is very broad in terms of the value chain coverage, and also in terms of the sectors that are in the alliance. Huh? So you have really many value chain actors from many different sectors. What is probably making it easier to manage and more effective is that it is relatively focused in terms of what it has to achieve, which can be also a limitation. So some people may say that it's not a focused scope, but a limited scope. But I think it's also a strength, paradoxically, of the alliance, that you have one target. So the alliance is working with one clear goal, which is quantified, so it is also easily translated into any European language. So it makes it, of course, easier to work together with a very clear target. Of course, it means also that it does not cover, as you would perhaps have in an ideal model of product stewardship, it does not cover all the dimensions of circularity, like reuse, reduction, pellets, I think that we will discuss later on. And it does not cover either other dimensions of sustainability, like, for example, the CO2 emissions. So that's an interesting also feature. Eva, we can move to the next slide. Yes, so also something, of course, important. You have seen 2 slides before the governance of the alliance with the steering committee. Of course, a specificity of the Circular Plastics Alliance is that it is driven by the value chain, or the value chains, maybe we should say, as there are obviously several. But it has been launched and by a public authority, here the European Commission, and the European Commission is still acting as a secretariat of the alliance and as the chair of the steering committee. So the presence of a public authority, independent, in the model is of course a very specific feature, and I think also an element to reflect upon. So we can move to the next slide, Eva. Thank you. So that was it. These were really the key features I wanted to highlight, to have maybe later a discussion around what are the lessons learned from this alliance, which kind of model it could be for stewardship for plastic? Is it already the right model we need? So here it's only 2 slides showing that the Circular Plastics Alliance has been launched in 2018, and it was referred to in the European Green Deal communication, in particular as a tool to help deeper cooperation in the value chain. So this is very rightly one of the key feature or the key benefit of the alliance that was retained. And if we move to the next slide, Eva. Yes, and a few months later, the Circular Plastics Alliance has been positioned in a different context, which is the announcement that the Commission will propose a mandatory recycled content for certain products. So this is a regulatory action, and it's quite interesting to say that yes, the Commission will propose some mandatory recycled content, also taking into account the activities of the Circular Plastics Alliance. So that's also interesting. That's not exactly product stewardship as such, but that was to show how the CPA is currently positioned in the policy landscape at the Commission. So I think that's it, Eva. Then you can move to the next slide. Voila. And then you have a few background slides. If you move again, Eva, please. Thank you. So these are only background slides to show to you really basic information about the rationale behind the alliance, which is a bit different, but which is really the basic information about the Circular Plastics Alliance. You can move slide again, Eva. Voilà, so this is, here you have the timeline, and then again, Eva, if you can move. And here we have the deliverables of the CPA. So with this, you have all the necessary background about the CPA, I think, to fuel our discussion. So next slide, please, Eva.
Maybe that is the end of your presentation, I think.
Yes, I was waiting for a Q&A slide.
Okay, no, but I mean the Q&A is just like, first, thank you very much for your very comprehensive overview of the CPA. So showing that it's a very focused scope with a clear target, and also highlighting the cross sectoral linkages are very interesting. We will come back during the panel on some more questions, but I think I've got a burning question: is that what makes the CPA a useful platform for stewardship on plastics at EU level? What do you think it does?
Is the question that you would like me to answer, Anne-Gaëlle?
Yeah.
Or is it a question to the panel?
It is a question for now, and we can move it to the panel if you need a bit of time to think about the response.
No, yeah. Of course, I can give an answer if you wish. I think this is what I tried to show indeed in the presentation. I think what makes it interesting in terms of a stewardship model that you discuss at the Circular Plastics Conference is that it is really trying to involve the full value chain, maybe more than extended producer responsibility in the more perhaps classical sense of the word would do. So the fact that you can see that the value chain is really covered extensively and from different angles. I have shown just a few, but it is really covered from different angles. So this is probably really what makes a platform for product stewardship or material stewardship effective, is that you have everybody that matters that is there. So probably that would be your first criterion. If you don't have everybody that matters, all the important actors in the value chain are not present, then of course that's a weakness. So probably that would be my first element of answer. And also, I personally think that the fact that the CPA is really giving ownership to the value chain, ownership of the actions, so really responsibility of the value chain within a clear framework. So you have a clear political framework, which is a predefined target. We have been sometimes suspected by some to let with the alliance to really let the industry decide what should be the policy action of the Commission on plastics. And we have always replied that this was certainly not the case, because the target in itself has been predefined. It has been defined in the European strategy on plastics by the European Commission, so that was non-negotiable from the start. Where there is ownership, where there is responsibility, where there is co-creation, is on the how. And so this is probably, when it comes to a model where you have a public authority and also member states. So we have already Portugal, and hopefully in the future more member states. So when you have public authorities working together with private actors, it is probably important to have a clear framework on what you want to do together, so that you can give ownership and responsibility to private actors on what they know the best, without being suspected of not having a clear policy objective.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss that further. Like we've put some questions maybe from the audience. We leave that the rest now for the panel discussion at the end of this session. And I'm going now to welcome two presenters. So first of all, Irene Mora from PlasticsEurope Spain, as well as after that, a colleague, Kamal. First of all, I think we have a pause. I think, if I'm right, Kasia?
Yes, we do. You can join, as you can see in the screen, and Eva will put on the poll question.
Okay, thank you. Because at the moment I don't see it. So hopefully we'll see it soon. And we can ask our speakers to join. Okay, so what do you think are key barriers to foster plastics packaging recycling? So citizen awareness for better sorting, or better sorting technologies once the packaging is collected, or more information to citizens so on what happens after the packaging is collected. So please do respond to the polls, and maybe we'll take a look at the responses after the presentation from Irene and Kamal. So Irene, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anne-Gaëlle. And wow, we already have some response on the poll. The first thing I want to thank to have the opportunity together with my colleague Kamal to present this Plastic Circle project. So Eva, when you can you share the presentation? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to be very short, because I want time for discussion, and I want time for also for the other colleagues to have time. But just to summarize, a 4-year project that is called Plastic Circle. This next slide, please, Eva. So what is this project about? This project is under the program of the European Commission Horizon 2020. So thanks, Laure, as a member of the European Commission, for these opportunities to work during 4 years to promote and to increase the plastic packaging recycling. This project is formed by a consortium of 20 pan-European partners. And as you said in your presentation, Laure, the important thing here is to have people from every single part of the value chains. I encourage all the attendees here to visit our website, because since this is a big project of 4 years, you will have much more information and very nice videos to explain explain all the results because the project is finishing in the next month. So just for you to visit our website. So next slide, please, Eva. What we want to highlight here is that from these 20 partners that are part of the consortium, we have people from all across the plastic packaging value chains. And I think this has been one of the key to have a very successful project, since we have expertise from across the plastic value chains with research institute, trade associations, recycling, waste management, company, and which make this project very special is that we have 3 pilot cities involved, Alba Iulia, Utrecht, and Valencia, plus 1 follower city, Valencia. So together with the expertise of the plastic packaging value chains and together of having these 3 pilot cities to implement the development of the projects, we were able to make a very holistic approach on how to improve this plastic packaging recycling. In the next slide, you can see that the approach of the project has been very holistic. So what I want to highlight here is, beside having the all plastic packaging value chains, the other key aspect is to have a holistic approach. What does this mean? We need to have a look on the whole life cycle of the packaging in order to get really sustainable solutions for recycling. And that's what is this project about. During the project, we have make improvement in the collection of the packaging, developing innovative smart containers to increase collection rates. Involving the citizens, we are a key aspect in order to increase recycling. We have been also working on transport, creating a cost-effective waste transport system that is connected to a cloud platform in order to make the transport as more efficiency as possible. Also, improving the sorting of plastic packagings. We are not going to give more details on this, but just to highlight that in the project, we were able to separate 6 different fractions of plastic packaging, which is quite a challenge. And what happened with this is the better you sort, more quality has your product. And that allows us to develop a new value-add recycling plastic product in the last stage of the holistic approach of the recycling. In the next slide, you can see how since we have all part of the value chain included, we were able to have very good results on where to use plastic packaging recycling from household, which is really a challenge in some of the applications. Thanks, we have all those companies and those research center in the projects, we were able to develop and to incorporate this kind of recycling products in different applications from the automotive sectors, together with Fiat and ProPlus that develop different automotive parts. Also, different applications in the building and construction sector, together with Almacel and Dervigun. Also, applications for ground together with Hans, and also for plastic bags together with Interval. So what we try is, thanks to developments done in the first part of the value chains, in the collection and sorting and transport, get to high-value products with this plastic post-consumer waste. So saying this, next slide, please. Oh, next slide, there is here. Yeah, those are the, so saying this, the other interesting part of the project is how we manage to pilot or the advantage in different cities, in Alba Iulia in Romania, in Valencia in Spain, and in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And once we arrive here, I will leave the floor to my colleagues Kamal, which will explains the experience in these cities.
Thank you, Irena. Next slide, Eva, please. So the pilot started with the involvement of the citizens. So the citizens had to register via an app or via internet. Once registered, they get an identification card that is used then on on the smart container, where you have an identification module that is used to identify the user, and then a label is released that will be used to tag their bag of plastic packaging waste. And this bag is then sent to the sorting plant, where there will be a random characterization of that bag. And depending on the content, they will get some credits that will be converted into economical compensation. So the better sorted, the higher the compensation. And this can be, for example, this compensation can be either a reduction in taxes or some kind of presents that the citizen can get. Next slide, please. So sorry, before we move to the next slide, these systems have been tested in Valencia and Alba Iulia. Unfortunately, it was not possible to test in Utrecht due to privacy concerns. Next slide, please, Eva. So the recruitment of the participants started with a communication campaign. These campaigns were consisted of communication on social media, newsletters, videos, magazines, and in addition, the different participants received a good goodie bag with information on how to better sort their packaging wastes. Next slide, please, Eva. Regarding technologies that were developed in PlasticsEurope, so you had the smart containers with the identification module and the feeding sensors, and then you have a route optimizers, which is an algorithm that is meant to optimize the routes. In addition, for the transport, we had eco-driving systems, which is meant to send messages to the driver to better operate the truck. All these devices were connected via a IoT platform, which was enabling the pay-as-you-throw system. In addition, PlasticsEurope developed improved sorters with better optical sensors and with a conveyor with a film stabilizer. Next slide, please, Eva. So the first pilot to test these technologies was Valencia, where the communication reached a large number of people. We had about 550 families involved in the pilot, which represented about 1,500 citizens. And this pilot has been used to optimize the different prototype we had, because we had some challenges. For example, we had some infiltration of rain. We had some issues with the delivery of the labels, and also we had to better kind of set up the different sensors for the route optimization, so to increase the coverage. So we have used this pilot to improve the different prototypes. And this will be then used into the next pilot with better systems. Next slide, please, Eva. Next. Yeah. So no, sorry. So in terms of results from the pilot in Valencia, we saw that the communication campaign had a good effect on the users, as we saw a better quality of the packaging waste we have collected, with less unwanted items, more PET collected, for example, and less residual waste. In addition, we saw a better compaction of the plastic packaging. So in terms of communication, this has been a success because the users improved the way they sorted their plastics at home. Next slide, please, Eva. With respect to route optimization, we have done this in 2 phases. The first phase was only focusing on the time and distance of the transport. And then the second phase, we also included the filling levels of the different containers. And depending on how much they were filled, we were either collecting them or skipping them. And this has resulted in very good improvements. We have reduced the distance of transport, the time of transport, as well as the fuel consumption, as you can see on this table. So distance has been reduced about 34%. And if you go to the fuel consumption, it was about 18%, which is a good achievement. Next slide, please, Eva. Next. So similarly to Valencia, we have replicated the pilot in Alba Iulia. This has been done during the Corona pandemic, so it was a bit challenging due to that. But nevertheless, we had about 480 citizens involved, and we have achieved quite good results in terms of plastic packaging quality collected, and reduced also the distance of transport and the fuel consumption, as you can see on these tables. So the city was very pleased with the results from PlasticsEurope, and they have the intention to implement this in their future strategy. In addition, we had very positive feedbacks from the users. Next slide, please, Eva. In Utrecht, we couldn't unfortunately not demonstrate all the technologies, because the city has already quite advanced underground containers with several sensors and devices. So we could only test the route optimization, and we have seen that this algorithm has shown to reduce the emissions and cost, as well as to be applicable in large scale with several trucks, and also kind of providing to the driver several route options, which is quite useful for the operators. Next slide, please. Next slide, Eva. Thank you. So overall, PlasticsEurope has demonstrated that we have increased the public awareness through the different communications and training of the citizens. We have also demonstrated several improvements in terms of technologies for the sorting, for the transport, and for the collection. This couldn't happen if we didn't have a good collaboration between all the different partners and stakeholders within the whole value chain. So, and all these results and technologies are ready to be replicated in several cities across Europe. And I think PlasticsEurope can improve the recycling and maybe achieve the target that the European Commission has set with respect to plastic recycling, which is about 74% by 2030. And with the last slide, please, Eva, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, René and Kamal. Thank you for this very interesting project and giving you some highlights of this project. I'm very interested by the fact that you've been working with citizens for developing really practical solutions, and I'm sure we can talk about it a bit later during the panel discussion. I have an immediate question. Is what do you think are the conditions to make the plastic circle successful in other cities? Maybe other cities in Europe, but other cities as well.
So as we have mentioned, it's very important that all the stakeholders within the value chain collaborate, but you have a good involvement of the citizens, but you also maintain their interest with time, because during PlasticsEurope it was a project and we had a lot of communication, so we could maintain this interest. But in long term, you have to have some activities or actions to maintain this interest. Irina, do you have something to add to this?
No, very, very clear, Kamal, thanks. I think just one thing is that the things that we have these three different cities in Europe with very different situation on plastic collections also help us to have a vision of how heterogeneous is Europe. So maybe one solution don't fit all, because we have different situation in Europe. So I think also these three cities kind of make a vision of how the situations can differ from one side to another, and how can we adapt the solutions from one city to another. So that also is the idea of Plastic Circle, that you can replicate at different level depending on the situation of a plastic collection in each city.
Well, thank you very much, all. Like a very interesting project. We'll talk about it a bit more later. And thank you. Now I'm going to introduce Rob Burgess, and I've got to correct what I said at the start. I said he was a chemical engineer, but in fact, Rob is an environmental engineer. So sorry about that, Rob. But before you start your presentation, we have a poll. So maybe Rob can actually describe it himself. We have a little graph, like I don't know if you can all see it very well. Maybe Rob, are you there?
Yeah.
No? If you can explain.
I can explain this. So what you see is a graph of what we call a bow tie model. It looks like a bow tie, that's why it's called that way. In the middle you see a spill, and on the left side there's the source, and on the right side is what happens after the spill, is the loss into the environment. And between the source, the spill and the loss there are barriers. So it's also a barrier failure analysis type of bow tie model. So my question is now, if you have this spill, what barrier would be most effective? And I already see that a lot of people have answered that question very right, because it's the one on the left side that's the most effective one. The closer to the source, the better the barrier will work. So I'm happy to see that a lot of people understand this model, so I can start working on this. On my presentation, let's go. Thank you, Eva. So my presentation about Operation Clean Sweep, and we are striving towards zero pellet loss. Next one. So maybe for those that are not aware of Operation Clean Sweep, here is a schedule of what it entails. So it's about plastic in the marine environment, and this graph explains where that plastic mostly comes from. It's a busy schedule, and you really need some time to look at it. But if you see, it comes from land-based sources. It can come from ships in the ocean, fishing nets and things like that. And it also can come from beaches. And you know, you've been there, you've seen that there's plastic on the beach, and then with the next wave it goes on the ocean. We say that the primary source of pellet loss in the ocean is not pellets, but it's tires from cars and road transport. So that's the 270,000 tons is from road coming, and then pellet loss unfortunately is the second biggest source. So that's good to remind. And then textiles, and you see all the other stuff standing there. If we go to the next slide, and here's looking at it a little bit more closely. So where do these pellets then come from? So of course from the industry that produce the pellets. It can be from urban runoff, and then during the logistics it can go into water streams, then with the converters, and in the end also with the transportation, like a lost container. Unfortunately, that does happen now and then. And so yeah, that's what how the pellets ended up at the beach or in the ocean. Next one. And this is how it looks like, and this is really what we want to avoid. So this is in the Antwerp Harbor in 2017, and you see all the white dots. You can see that's polymer pellets. We're talking about pellets, but in Operation Clean Sweep language, pellets also means powder, so the smaller particles, and also what we call flakes, like angel hair kind of polymer. You could say polymeric solids. That's what is all incorporated in Operation Clean Sweep. So you see clearly pictures that of situations we don't want to find in the environment. And I have one more on the next slide. And this is in Tarragona in Spain. It looks like a few, but you know, this is only a very close-up picture. Those pellets are normally 3 to 4 millimeter in diameter, and you see that at the beach in Tarragona, we see those as well. Okay, next one. So, and because of that, there's a lot of talk about pellet loss in the environment, virgin plastic. There's many names for these plastics. In some countries they call them nurdles. You see that especially in the UK and in Australia they call them nurdles, or nips is another way they call them. But they should not be in the environment, and a lot of things are happening to and talk about it in newspapers, and that also started up NGOs to look for them, like the Great Nurdle Hunt, and also in the US, where one of the companies was really fined for having polluted the Texas waterways. Okay, next one. So this is this is from the NGO FIDRA, and there's a website. You can go there and you can see where they do the collection of pellets and also the intensity that they found it. They use a method like a 1 square meter, and they count the amount of pellets in that 1 square meter, and then they multiply it with the region where they find the pellets, and so they calculate the amount. It's not. It's a good way. It's not very accurate, of course, because it's still an estimation. But it's a good way to count those pellets. And so you see, people are very active in trying to find them and then, of course, clean up. Next one. Okay, so to respond to that, the industry has started with Operation Clean Sweep. That's the program I'm talking about, and in essence it has 6, it does have a pledge, so we promise that we are going to work with it, and not only a promise, we're doing it, and we have 6 actions programs, so to say. We are improving our work sites, creating and publishing internal procedures, providing employee training. We are auditing internally and working on external auditing as well. And of course, we comply to applicable legal and national law, local and national law. And very important, and also very important in the sense of this meeting, we also want to encourage our partners, contractors, transporters, the whole value chain. And that's all happening as we speak. And you can follow that also on the website that is indicated there. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the result. It started, so Operation Clean Sweep already is ongoing in the United States for a longer period of time, but PlasticsEurope started a few years ago. And what we see is that now all PlasticsEurope members have signed up the Operation Clean Sweep pledge since 2019. Well, it's even the other way around. You can't be a PlasticsEurope member if you do not sign up the pledge. So we made it compulsory to sign up the pledge. And at the beginning of this year, PlasticsEurope was very, very successful in also combining this effort with other European associations like EUPC, the European Plastic Converters, and also with transportation companies. So all in all, we have now, well, you can see how many people have signed up, about 1,200, but there's a lot of EUPC members that are going to sign up, and there are about 60,000 of these companies in Europe alone, and they are all working on being ready for Operation Clean Sweep. Okay, next slide. So this is just an example of improving the work sites. Sometimes the measures can be very, very simple. The picture on the left, top left, you see a pallet, a wooden pallet, where normally the bags are on. If you just put on the bags directly on that wooden pallet, there can be a nail in it. or there can be like a piece of wood which is not aligned, and so the bag is being punctured, and you have a loss of pellets. And we're just putting either a plastic or a cardboard plate on top of it. That cannot happen. Sometimes it's as simple as that. We have all kinds of cleaning devices. Many companies have started to putting sieves into their sewer pits. You see that on the bottom left, sewer pits, and they have a sieve, and then these sieves will be cleaned up regularly, and also just make available enough cleaning tools like brooms and dustpans and things like that, and they have a system where they are put so that you can see that they are available. And on the bottom right you see a forklift truck that has protection on its forks to prevent pellet bags to be punctured as well. Simple things, but can also be complicated, like the one on the top right, which is a complete blow-off system for trucks, and many of the companies are now investing in those kind of units to prevent that the trucks do have, after loading, there's still pellets on top of the truck, and they lose them while driving on the road. Okay, next one. So the external context. In Europe, we see that is quite some things happening. The European strategy for plastic in the circular economy. ECHA has some restrictions. There is work being done by the European Commission on unintentional release of microplastics, and OSPAR has also issued guidelines. And of course, very important in France, there is a law. It's recently been accepted, and it will go into force, I believe, in 2023. And then in the UK, the British Standard Institute started with a publicly available specification and PAS, where they're also working on pellet loss handling and management. So a lot of initiatives from both public authorities, policymakers, but also from the associations. Okay, next one. So to make all these efforts, because we have a pledge, and I say we promise, but we also do things. This is what our response is also on that, is that we are working on an OCS certification scheme that will be ready by 2022, working very hard on it. We have set some minimal requirements and basic requirements for the companies to achieve. That entails guidances and procedures and best practices, and then we do harmonization within the industry to make sure that everyone is talking the same language. And then there will be annual reporting and the bow tie risk model that I just showed in the beginning. And we will develop some support actions to enable quantifiable reporting at the EU and national level. And there's also quite a lot of exchange with the Americas, the American Chemistry Council, where we will do the same. Next one. So a certification scheme that entails the value chain. So it's not only the PlasticsEurope members, but also transportation, logistics, recyclers, and also the EUPC, the plastic converters. It will be a transparent system that will be used. And the idea is that companies that have already a management system in place, like ISO 14001 or responsible care, they can connect that system into their already existing quality or management system. And companies that do not have such a management system, they can use the same questionnaires, the same system, but then it will be audited by, for instance, a company like SQAS that is doing these type of audits and preparing this all. The current objective is that the certification system will be ready the 1st of January 2022, and about 100% of the members of PlasticsEurope will be audited by the end of 2024. And we see that the coverage of the voluntary commitment for converters and compounders should be 80% by the end of 2024. So really good set of goals there. Next one. Yeah, this is how it looks like, the system. So there's a generic common minimum requirements for all. So it doesn't matter if you're a producer, converter, transporter, recycler, we all have the same minimum requirements. And then, because there's of course differences between a producer and a transporter, we'll have specific requirements for each branch in the value chain. And then they all, so the larger companies will report using ISO 14001 or as a standalone, and the transporting company will use their already existing SQS system, which is a standalone system. And the recyclers have their own system there. And all will report in a report that PlasticsEurope or the OCS Plus public register will prepare, so that we have a very transparent reporting on the progress of this. Next one. So the big issue is that there is no good methodology to measure pellet loss. I was in the meeting just before this one from the NEN, the Dutch Normalization Institute. They were discussing a system to normalize loss of pellet in the environment, and they were talking about making a norm. But I think we should start making a method statement for how to measure this. It's really very important. There's no good system yet, and all the figures I showed in the first graphs are based on the percentage loss that is estimated by Eunomia and others. It's really a very big issue to measure it. What nowadays does happen is the total suspendable solids. That's a method that works quite good on like sand or other stuff, but not on floating materials like plastics and all types of that stuff, because it's not really suspended. It's really very hard to measure that. So it's insufficient to measure that in that way. So we really are looking for a good measurement method, and anyone in the call that comes up with a method that is workable, I really challenge you to find a method for a good measurement methodology. Next one. So that's why we propose this bow tie model. This is based on a very well-known and widely used in the industry method. It's used a lot in process and occupational safety. It works with barriers. And so what we developed, it's much more detailed than you see in this picture. We developed a system where we are looking into, okay, where in the industry, in the site, on the plant, are these sources? What barriers are already in place, and can we give them a number of reduction percentage or something like that when we have a certain spill? And then on the other side, okay, what do these sieves and what do these methods that are preventing the loss in the end, everything that we have in place after a spill has occurred, how well do they work, and what will result of that? And by doing so, we can also simulate a spill and calculate how much of that spill would in the end end up in the environment. And of course, we have to work out this in more detail. We have a principle we have ready, but we are going to test it on some sites. We're going to improve that method and see if we can use that as an additional tool do estimation of losses into the environment. It's still a work in progress, but I think it's a very good effort that we are doing there. And then I think there's one more. Not sure. Yeah, that's one. So those that have not signed up yet for the Operation Clean Sweep program, go to this link and sign up. So is there any questions then?
Well, thank you very much, Rob, for highlighting the measures taken by the industry, which is led by PlasticsEurope to eliminate. I think it's a question of elimination of pellet loss in the environment. It's a very difficult task. It requires like involvement of the whole value chain. So you see, if you have like a gap in the value chain, you will have like still like losses of pellets. So I think that you also highlighted it's a requisite of membership of PlasticsEurope to sign up to Operation Clean Sweep. So it's a call like for those who haven't yet signed up from the rest of the value chain to consider signing up. So by working all together, that we will succeed with this. So I have like a question. Like, have you already seen some concrete improvement by the value chain? By some of the suppliers, like by being more aware of pellet loss, because as the industry now we are very aware of that. So it was not the case many years ago, but now we are aware of pellet loss and we're working towards eliminating it. But do you know if other like part of the value chain are getting that as well, like as being something quite important to work on?
Yeah, it's a good question, Anne-Gaëlle, and I must say, luckily, yes, we do see that that this is taking up speed also in the rest of the value chain. The transportation companies, big companies like the one I'm working for, LyondellBasell, they use certain transportation companies, and they all have signed the pledge. They all are working on this and improving their workplaces, and also instructing their drivers. But we also see it in clients that are using our polymer, companies like Lego, IKEA, other companies. They are very much into this to prevent plastic from going into the environment. And it's not only the plastic in the value chain itself, but also after it's being used, the post-consumer plastic. They are working on that as well, and so yeah, this is really taking up speed a lot. So yeah, luckily, yeah.
Thank you very much, Rob, and hopefully, like in a few years' time, we won't see any more pellets in the environment. We will be going to the beach and we won't recognize any like these pellets. Thank you all. Now we're going to continue the session. Are we going to move into more panel discussion? So I have a few questions. I don't know if there's any questions from coming from the audience. It would be good to have some questions coming from the audience. But I'm just going to start like with a very general question for all of you. Is that really what are the lessons learned for a successful value chain like cooperation? So I mean that you're all coming from different angles. Whether you're working like in partnership between government and industry, or you are working more into the science and innovation and research, or as industry you are trying to implement new programs. So what do you think would be like the lesson learned for new collaboration with the value chain? So I don't know who wants to start. I don't know if we need to do it in order. Like, for example, like maybe Rob, you're the last speaker. Maybe you can start answering the question.
Okay. So yeah, I think for the value chain, it's very important that that we get this commitment and awareness. And as I said, the bigger companies, the companies that are normally front runners, you see this already happening. But it's so, because this value chain is so complex and also so large, I think it's also very important that we get the big mass. It's always with every development, you always have the runners up that are in front of it, but then you get a big mass like a that you have to get also interested, and that's quite a challenge. And I think also a good method for measuring, because we are now using all the assumptions that have been done, but really a good accurate measuring of the amount of plastic going into the environment would also be very important to make people even more aware of what is really happening. And so I think that's two things that I want to focus on in the future, is raising awareness for the bigger group of industry, smaller companies, and a better method for measuring.
And of course, you mentioned that you're working with NGOs, and you have a very strong interest from NGOs. So we're going a lot beyond the value chain itself, and we're talking about stewardship here. So yeah, we get the citizens involved as well in this.
Correct.
In this
Correct.
work.
Yeah. I think PlasticsEurope and also some of its members are looking into programs to work together with NGOs to look at how we can solve this serious issue of marine litter. And you know, there's already the Alliance to End Plastic Waste is one of those examples where a large group is working together to try to solve the issue in Asia, where plastic littering is really a huge issue as well. So yeah.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question to you, Rob. I don't want to just like ask you questions only, but what's happening in the rest of the world? You mentioned America, the US, but what's happening in the other parts of the world? Are they also following that?
Yeah, so PlasticsEurope and ACC, the American Chemistry Council, are working closely together on this, and we see that there's a joint development of programs and tools and things like that. Of course, the US can give its own flavor to it, but we were really up to speed with so that's, I think, covered. But it's really difficult for Asia. First of all, Asia is not one, like the US, it's one country, but Asia is like Europe, many countries. But as far as I know, there's no Plastics Asia organization. So there's something in China, there's something in other regions, but it's not as well organized as I know as we have here in Europe. So that makes it more complicated. And also, yeah, what we now see is that it's the bigger producing companies and also the bigger logistic companies that work globally. They really take up the lead and start doing things that they're doing in Europe. They also do it in Asia. There's one, I recently asked that in the task force operation teams within PlasticsEurope, which I'm also sharing. I asked the group if they would have the same program for European sites as they would have in Asia, and they all confirmed that they do exactly the same in the Asian sites as they do in Europe. So that's the way I think we start doing it, by just starting out of the companies themselves.
Well, thank you, Rob. So maybe we're going to move to another member of the panels now. Maybe Laure can tell us what are the lessons learned for successful value chain cooperation. So you've shown into describing the CPA that there's a real collaboration going on with different parts of the value chain. So what do you think are the lessons learned, Laure?
I think so. In particular, when listening to the presentation by Rob on Operation Clean Sweep and on the Circular Plastics Alliance, a common point would be to have a clear goal. To make really because working together as a value chain means that you have many different actors. It's important that you have a clear goal, people know what we're trying to achieve, and maybe also that you have information sharing that is efficient. If we have a clear goal, also how do we measure it? I guess, Rob, this must be also something relevant for pellet spillage. Yeah, so probably that would be two lessons learned for me.
Well, thank you, Laure. I think that well, in the CPA, it's slightly different because you have also collaboration. And you mentioned there's one member state that joined the CPA. So are you expecting other members to join? Are you expecting to grow in terms of membership? What do you expect from countries joining? Because I mean, some countries have joined like Plastic Pact, for example, at a national level. Is there like something that they could contribute to as like as part of the CPA?
Sure, because I think it was initially the intention to have the member states in the CPA. So that was the initial intention. So what probably I think the member states in particular would bring to an alliance like the CPA is all the knowledge of the national environments and the discussions around collection practices and infrastructure in member states, so in countries, and also to have this detailed analysis of what is going on the ground and how this could fit within the national environment. And conversely, what probably the CPA could bring, although I understand it is already what the pact is trying to do, but is more the collective dimension, so the coordination in the single market and so on, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much, Laure. I think that we've heard about the practicality of having member states involved in such initiatives, and I think that when we heard about the Plastic Circle project and with Irene and Kamal, is like, having citizens involved, like that's why you can look at the practicality. Do things work in practice? So I would ask you the same question. What are the lessons learned? I think you started responding at the end of your presentation, but can you tell us a bit more about that? What do you think that we should learn from that?
I can, if you want, Kamal, I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, first, from my side, I think the first lesson learned is that we all learned. And for me, at least, it has been the experience on this of this project that having all the expertise across the value chains give us an opportunity to open our mind, because sometimes we only have one side of the pictures. And this kind of experience give us the opportunity to open minds, to listen other views and learn from other perspectives. And as Laure said, I think the second key is to have a common objective. And then the way of how we get this objective will be done as we are exchange views, as we collaborate. We know where to go. Maybe the path is different depending on how good we collaborate together. But I think it's key to both to be open-minded, to learn from others, and also to have this common target to go there as efficiently as possible. And at least this has been my experience from this project, because sometimes we go from the perspective of the industry, and then you talk with the cities and they have another perspective, but maybe also they have changed their mind in some aspect related to plastic, to polymers, because they know the whole holistic pictures. And I think for me, it's the lesson learned that we all learned in this kind of initiative and projects. I don't know, Kamal.
No, I agree with you, Irena. I think we have all learned, and we saw that it was possible to recycle plastic with a good collaboration between the different actors. But there is one thing that is crucial. I think you have to have a market for it. And the price of recycled plastic is sometimes in competition with the virgin plastic. So So therefore, I think you have to have a kind of economical, sustainable value chain for the recycled plastic. Otherwise, you have to find some tools to make it work, financial tools, taxes or something. Otherwise, recycled plastic will be outcompeted by the virgin plastic. And I think that's important aspect that can be crucial to discuss.
Can add to that. What was really interesting is that now we see that because some companies really like to put their product in a recycled container, that the ask for recycled plastic materials is really going up. So that's also a market mechanism that's now ongoing, and so it's really very, very positive that there is no limit anymore on using recycled content in a container, for instance, or in a product, and that's really a very good thing. So, and it's also, I would say, a little bit so to say. It's very popular to use recycled content in your product.
I think you touch upon having some measures, something to actually help in that. So obviously there's legislation can be also considered. So I mean, how can regulation contribute to improve plastic packaging, recycling? Do you have anything you want to say on that? I know that, for example, in the terms of pellet loss, we don't have regulation. We may have some in the future. We're starting with the ECA microplastic restriction, but would regulation help in this context?
I would like to reverse it, to be honest. How is regulation now hindering recycling and use? You're naming ECA, but there's still no waste framework directive. There's no still the discussion about byproducts and waste and things like that. It's really sometimes hindering the recycled content. So I think a good regulation, we need regulation on that, but a good regulation would help certainly. I'm convinced that. I saw also Irene was wanting to say something. Irene.
Irene?
Yeah. Well, I will take the question from the positive side on how regulation can help. And I think the first thing in the case of packaging, and I think it's the same for all kind of waste stream, is to improve collections. I know we have seen in this project that in some countries packaging collection is very, very well implemented, but in other countries there is still room for improvement. So I think I know already the direct packaging directives and circular economy packets and on this way, but maybe we have to force this improvement of the collection of all packagings to and also what Kamal said, we need to have a market for these recycled materials. So also maybe positive incentive instead of tax. I'm more in favor of positive actions to encourage the use of this material. We have seen in the project that citizens respond better for positive measures, or maybe and probably the industry will do so. And last thing, also to promote innovation. I think innovation in terms of social innovation, as we have seen in the project, innovation instead of technologies, and also innovation in new technologies, for example, chemical recycling and all this new technology that I'm sure will foster the recycling of plastic packaging, especially for food contact application and this kind of applications where recycling, mechanical recycling is harder to incorporate. So I'm sure it's and we have seen this is another partnership where it's key to collaborate all together to arrive to the common goal that we all have, is this European circular economy. So yeah.
Thank you, Irene. Maybe the last word for Laure, because I think we're coming towards the end of this session. So I don't know if Laure wants to add like into what was just said.
No, I think it captures quite well. So no, that was I was taking notes, so I have nothing to add.
Well, thank you very much all. I think that it was an interesting session where like we could show the different like initiatives that exist in terms of product stewardship and value chain collaboration. And we're looking towards to see more coming up within the next few years, all to actually achieve the same thing. We all want to achieve circularity under our climate goals. So thank you. I'm going to pass back the microphone to Clarchi to continue with the panel, I think. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Anne-Gaëlle. Well, first of all, I would like to thank all you and all speakers of this interesting session. And I think the word chain is crucial here. And we can discuss that a little more in the second part of this session. As you know, we have the network app that is running continuously, so also tomorrow and also next week, where you can see the whole program, the input or the output from the previous sessions. But for now, you can also connect there with each other, say hello, have meetings, set up meetings, and go to a room to talk to the speakers and interact a little bit more with each other. Yeah, so questions can be raised on top, and you can say hello just clicking on a little dot, and also the instructions will be there. But please come back to the network app to discuss the content a little bit further. And the speakers will be there till about 5. So we hope to see you all there. For now, this is the final minute of this live session. This is session 5B, and in May, the 20th of May, we'll have our last session. As you can see, we've been starting at the 4th of February with the opening session on this conference. And in the meantime, we've been talking a lot about content, and we've taken up all the lessons learned, and we will come back to you on the 20th of May with a general session where we'll discuss those lessons learned, have a look at the roadmap we have set up so far, and discuss the societal challenges. Because after this, we want to go ahead with the way forward with the community that is available now at this conference, but also everybody around and on social media, and not stop on the 20th of May, but make that a new starting port for the next era of circular plastic. So I'll see you all at the network app. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.